Charlotte Flair. What surprised me, maybe it shouldn't, was the amount of various reactions to Jey Uso winning the men's Rumble match. Don't get me wrong, it's a surprise, and a legit surprise, and not really something I saw coming. Like, and the way WWE booked it to where it was Jey Uso and Cena in the final two made it feel so random that it almost had to be John Cena was destined to win it until he wasn't. So I could see a lot of people getting caught off guard and surprised, but the amount of negative reaction to this has surprised me, because what in the bluest of blue fucks are people talking about here? By no stretch of the imagination, by no measurement, by no shape or form, was he the worst Rumble match winner of the night. That hands down goes to Charlotte fucking Flair. But we'll talk about that botchy bitch and how stupid that shit is in a moment. Let's talk about Jey Uso, though. Just from a pure business standpoint. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter why, he is over, and he is over big. And not just in an internet bubble. Jey Uso is over with the audience in a deeply emotionally invested, connected kind of way that not too many wrestlers can pull off nowadays. He gets eyeballs, he moves a lot of merch. Those are pretty big, important business metrics for WWE. And frankly, if you were in Hunter's position, WWE's position, and you weren't considering Jey Uso based off of some of those business metrics as a guy that could win this Rumble, then you're not a good wrestling mind and a bad business person. Additionally, when you think about Jey Uso, this is a guy that over a decade, this company has invested a lot in, but in particular, over the past 4.5 years, when you think about the whole Bloodline storyline. Like the shirt right here, right? Like Jey Uso has been significantly, heavily invested into in terms of television time, in terms of exposure, in terms of who he's been positioned with. And when you think about the Rumble match and the Rumble match winner, you can use that for different things. You can use that as validation of a return, validation of a repush, validation of a new push and a new star. But you can also use that as a validation and continuation of previous investment as you're looking to continue to get a return on previous said investment. And Jey Uso certainly fits into that category. Like, look, whether you thought he was the best option here or not, the reality is, in terms of what he's been involved with over the past several years, the fact that he is fucking over. He is absolutely meriting of being a Rumble match winner. If you don't like it, cry in your corner. I don't care. And sometimes you have to acknowledge the way wrestling goes is that even if you don't like it, even if you don't get it, you can't get so caught up in your own bullshit and perspective that you can't see the bigger picture. Like, look, I will never be a raging Kenny Omega fan by any stretch of the imagination. I think some of the things that he represents aren't great for wrestling, but I will never deny that for the fan base that he is appealing to, he's incredibly popular. So if I am running an AEW, let's say, I'm going to do my best to protect the Kenny Omega brand and feature him very well and prominently in the appropriate places. Even if I'm that style of wrestling, it's not just about me, right? I would be a bad businessman to undercut a Kenny Omega. You go back a little over a decade ago, and you talk about the whole yes movement with Daniel Bryan in 2014. Wasn't the direction I would have went, but at some point in time, you have to validate it and you have to go with it. And even if that means that it changes your plans, and so be it, you can always make new fucking plans. And I'm not suggesting that Jey Uso in 2025 is like Daniel Bryan early 2014 levels of over, but he ain't that fucking far off. And frankly, the company has a hell of a lot more invested in Jey Uso, so the stakes here at play make even more sense to put it on him than it did to give, I know Daniel Bryan didn't win the Royal Rumble in 2014, follow my logic here though, is the way that they forced and shoehorned Daniel Bryan into the main event picture at WrestleMania 30, right? I'm just saying, if anything, I have one criticism here of this, and it's a big one. If you were going to have Jey Uso win the fucking Royal Rumble, then you should have just done this shit last year and have him be the one to beat Roman Reigns. Instead of having to go with the corporate John Cena wannabe forced option and Cody Rhodes for the second year running, if you were just going to put this on Jey Uso, who has infinitely more story with our tribal chief, the original tribal chief, like that's the money match. If you were going to have a Sami Zayn do it, then it has to be a Jey Uso. It certainly should not be a fucking Cody Rhodes. Right minds could disagree, but if you disagree with this one, whatever. Like, you should have done this last year. Because then, you would also have an evidence of knowing, like, hey, Roman and Jey can make big shit happen. They've had some fire main event level matches. Versus Jey Uso last year coming off of WrestleMania where you're like, he stunk up the joint with Jimmy and like putting him into a featured spot here a year later. That's a bit of a risk. And then putting him in there against Gunther, like shit, frankly, the better story to me this time would be Jey versus Cody Rhodes than it is Jey versus Gunther, a match you've seen several fucking times. But that's my big criticism. It might be different than others. But if you were going to go here with Jey Uso, it should have been last year. I'm just saying. It wouldn't have felt as forced. Whatever, right? But yeah, like, as I've had a couple days to kind of process and think about this, it's really not that big of a whoop that Jey Uso won. He was one of the real viable options here. And you could have said, well, you should have had Roman, or you should have had Punk, or you should have had Cena. Like, those are all viable options there, right? But kind of like it's a now or never. A year, 2, 3 from now, you're not going to have Jey Uso win this. So you got one shot, one moment, one opportunity. You got to strike while the iron is hot. And it's something I've consistently said throughout my decade and a half of talking about wrestling here on damn YouTube, is sometimes you only get one shot, one opportunity. So your best strike when the iron is the hottest. And that's what the WWE is doing here. So I feel like a huge hypocrite to come back and criticize them now for that. My criticism is, you should have fucking done it a year ago. So again, I've been really surprised to see so much of the outrage and like disagreement has been focused on this. And somehow, some way, new year, yet another new face, same old overforced, overpushed, botchy bitch, now 3 times divorced, Charlotte Flair, is somehow skating off here. Like, at least you can look at Jey Uso and say, organically, through a period of time and a process, he has gotten to a point where the fans are really behind him and really behind this shit and want to get emotionally invested in him. You can't say any of that shit with Charlotte fucking Flair. Like, as soon as she appeared at number 27, you already knew this was going down. They were putting her in a money slot. They threw the fucking pyro at her. You knew they were having to win this shit. As soon as she was showing up, she was winning. Point blank, period. We've been here, we've done this, it is boring as shit then, it's boring as shit now, it will always be boring as shit. Her character fucking sucks, her mic skills are atrocious, she is not that organically over with the crowd. And in fact, the more you continue to try and force this bitch down people's throats, eventually, just because I am an innovator / early adopter here, doesn't mean that others won't eventually come over to my viewpoint. They will realize, oh my god, this is one of the most overforced bitches in wrestling history, because she fucking is. There's no story here. Meanwhile, in her own damn women's Rumble match, she was nowhere near the most over talent. Alexa Bliss comes out back after being gone for even longer. Are we going to compare the reactions for those two? Alexa Bliss buried that botchy-faced bitch. And yet somehow at Charlotte Flair, they just got to force it, got to ram her down everybody's throats and up their asses. Chelsea Green was way more over with the crowd. But you're not forcing her like you do Charlotte fucking Flair. Obviously Trish appeared, and she's certainly more over. Like, I could go on and on and on. All of these viable options. And you went to the default lamest fucking option. Jimmy Uso gets massive sustained reactions. Charlotte Flair does not. Jey Uso has the ability to get you to give a shit about what he's doing without being forced to do so. Charlotte Flair does not. We've actually seen, although it didn't happen last year at WrestleMania, we've seen Jey Uso deliver big-time matches in big-time spots. And no matter how much the low standards of today's wrestling fan base and wrestling media try to tell you, we have yet to see Charlotte fucking Flair do that. You take that match against Rhea Ripley and you pound it up your fucking ass, because that was dog shit. It's like every big match with Charlotte Flair. It's a botchy, illogical spot fest of bullshit. Like, how the hell is Jey Uso winning the Rumble so much more controversial than Charlotte fucking Flair? We've been there. We've done that. She sucked. She sucks. We'll always suck. What's the appeal here? At least you can say with Jey Uso, you have versatility. You have options. You send him at Gunther. You send him at Cody Rhodes. There's a shit ton of history there. Could also facilitate a Cody Rhodes character turn, which is badly needed. You can go to the Elimination Chamber. And if Cody Rhodes fucking loses the belt if you were so inclined, and Jey takes on Roman, Jey takes on whoever, like, there are lots of different options there. But for Charlotte Flair, none of that shit exists, and the fans don't give that much of a fuck. She is not nearly the eyeball getter or the merch mover of a Jey Uso. You bring back Alexa Bliss to like 10 times the reaction, but yet it's once again Charlotte Flair that's going to get 10 times the fucking push. At some point in time, your fan base gets tired of the fucking Nepo babies. If we're going to sit there and try to force somebody, why don't you force a Braun fucking Breaker? There's somebody that's poised and positioned for a future WrestleMania fucking main event spot. If you want to push and force somebody, push a Jacob fucking Fatu. Here's an idea. Push Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu at the same time and position them to be the main event of WrestleMania. That's your fucking money match. Money match, Charlotte Flair. Terms that do not go together in any fucking stretch of the imagination. People got to stop deluding themselves and buying into this propaganda and bullshit. And this even goes for those fans that really lean heavily towards loving the ladies, the divas, the female superstars, whatever the fuck you want to call them. At some point in time, Charlotte is not your hero, ladies and fellas. Charlotte is the obstacle. Charlotte is the problem. She is not the answer to the equation. She certainly isn't the fucking solution. She is the barrier, and she is the one that will undercut anybody that's really trying to get over on that side of the roster. Stop it. So my whole push here, if you don't agree with Jey Uso winning, fine. But the lengths that I've seen people go to in terms of the reaction here feel totally out of pocket. Meanwhile, you've got such a stark, rating obvious fucking reason to rant, staring you right in the fucking plastic surgery face. And you're not taking the opportunity. Why? What the fuck is wrong with you? Big dog dumb bitch. The dog shit decision for a Royal Rumble match winner this year was not Jey Uso. It was, once again, Charlotte fucking Flair.